Hi everyone, and welcome back to Mavin Methods. This month we are going to take a little bit of a diversion from what we normally do. What we normally do is look at one particular feature or trick or workaround of some sort that is helpful for making maps in MapMaven. And of course, we believe that that's useful information for you guys, and we love doing it. But we've been getting questions as to how some of these more quote unquote complex maps are made. And the truth is, maps like our New York Wi-Fi hotspots map or Vancouver Olympics map aren't hard to make. But of course, if you haven't done that before and aren't familiar with what goes into it, then it might seem a little daunting or out of your pay grade, when in fact, these really don't take that much more time to make than, say, a map with one or two layers. This map of Los Angeles, for example, looks pretty complicated, but it took me maybe a minute to make. So granted, they could take hours to make if you were to go further down the rabbit hole of complexity, and we have a system that is absolutely ready and waiting for that. But if you do want to make a map, whether just for fun or you have a project over a major city or a bunch of data sets and you're just kind of in the dark as to how to bring it all together and present it in a way that makes sense to people who are viewing it, we're going to take a look at that. So we're essentially doing a dissection right now of this New York Wi-Fi hotspot maps. Little disclaimer here, I do live here in the city, so I'm biased towards New York. If you've noticed that there are maps over New York and LA all the time, I'm from LA and live here now, so forgive me for that leaning. But this New York map is a great example of how you can take what's already out there in the World Wide Web and put it together to not just make something pretty, but something useful. So quick backstory here. In New York City, we have Wi-Fi public hotspots. So in many of the subway terminals, especially in Manhattan, in the center of town, we have free Wi-Fi. And that can be really helpful in some of the deeper subways where you don't have 4G or LTE as you go farther underground. And some networks just don't have good service anyways. So you can hop on your smartphone and get on Wi-Fi. And also, if you're changing between trains or you have some time to kill, or really any other reason that you might need internet, you can do that from down in the subway instead of having to fight for a space in a Starbucks and buy something. So it's a great resource, but it's obviously not the most intuitive place on earth to navigate. So I went ahead and made this map with stuff that's already available. Because if you have hotspots on there, it's nice, but you might be like, you know what? I don't know if the subway goes near this hotspot. I don't know if my bike route goes near here. It's a lot harder when you're on the ground. So if you can see where everything intersects, you can figure out where and when to take advantage of that public resource. So now on to how I actually made this. So we're again looking at this map. And really, it's pretty straightforward when it comes to using publicly available data. The city of New York is great for that. So we are on opendata.cityofnewyork.us here. And this is not unique to New York City. I want to emphasize that. As GIS has become more pervasive in today's society, more and more cities have started creating open data portals like this. And I would actually feel comfortable making the claim that most American cities, most Canadian cities, and other cities around the world already have this. So this is very easy to find whether you're in Chicago or New York or LA or Rio de Janeiro, and the list goes on. You're going to find these open data portals. They're a great resource for making maps and for a whole host of other projects. So back to this one. This is NYC Open Data. You'll see I've typed in subway because I want to know where the subway intersects with Wi-Fi. So all of the layers, it's a little backstory here, all of the layers in the map that I'm showing you are from this portal. For more complex maps that we'll talk about down the road, you could build those layers entirely within MapMaven, or you could build them in another service such as Qgis and other mapping services and so forth. But for now, all that complexity that you see in my map is actually pretty easy to get because it's already made for you. So let's see. I'm going to go with subway lines. and then from there maybe subway stations. So we'll click subway lines. And what's great about a lot of these bigger city portals is, look, it's already there visible for me. You're not always going to get a preview of it, but at least the name will lead you in the right direction. But you can see a little preview of this, and it's this it's this purpley layer of subway lines that I'm going to extract. So I would go to export, and Maven supports quite a few of these. We support JSON, KMZs, KMLs, and shapefiles. I would recommend doing KMZs or shapefiles. They're the most consistent. For those of you who don't know, a shapefile is the file from ArcGIS, which is a proprietary mapping software from ESRI that is very common in our industry. KMZs are Google Earth files, and those are probably the best to start with if you aren't very familiar with mapping, because anyone can download Google Earth and get started right away. It is worth mentioning that if you do want to work with shape files, you can download Qgis, which is an open source mapping platform, and it will read these just fine. I just caution that it's a little more complicated if you are not familiar with GIS technology. So KMZ or shapefile is going to probably be the best way to go. We do have other file format support, but we won't dive into that right now. You'll want to click that, and I've already done it, so I'm not going to do that for you and have you watch me load a file. But you would then you'd come over here, you'd click layers, upload layer, click here, name it, it'll upload and then appear right here. So you'll see I've already done it. Here we have subway lines, and boom, similar to New York's open portal, here is ours in terms of visualizing the layer before you put it in a map. So I've gone ahead and made it yellow. Quick thing to keep in mind, we start on polygon here, but it's a line. So if you click line, you'll see, okay, it's yellow as a line. And I'm not going to change it because I like what it is now. But if I wanted to, I could skew it left to right, change the darkness of it or lightness, the saturation, I guess you would call this. I'm not a photography genius by any means. And also, this is key. This bar down here allows you to alter opacity. So if you want it to be a little transparent, you can do that. You'll actually see that I added a little bit of transparency to this one. Nothing crazy. I really didn't have a reason for that beyond wanting some of the street names to show up. So you'll see, like on Broadway here, you can still read Broadway below it while clearly seeing the subway line on top. So you would then just click Finish. And you'll see I've uploaded other layers. I actually got the Wi-Fi hotspot location data as well from the open data platform for NYC, but this one is point data. So you go to point data, you see how it's a little bit pinker than what this looks like. That's because I have these as very transparent, because if I do that, I can then see where they overlap, and areas that are darker are going to show up as highly concentrated areas for Wi-Fi. So with that in mind, and there's certainly other layers that you'll see, I would upload all those, and then I would go and I'd create a new map. I've already made it, so it would appear here if I had a new map and named it New York Wi-Fi hotspots. You then go to Edit, and you can select layers here. So all of your layers that you've already uploaded into your account show up, and you'll see which ones I have selected. They appear here, and from there you can drag layers to change the stacking order, add a bio, add a name, and you can also edit layers. So I'm not going to edit this one right now, and we have a great video on editing, but if I wanted to, I could go back to this layers actual page like we were looking at about a minute ago, the subway lines, and then if I click it, vertices will show up, points along it, vertices, and I can drag them out and change the path of this subway line. I obviously don't want to do that because these are official, and I wouldn't want to lead people quite literally in the wrong direction. But you can do that if it's something that you've gone ahead and made, or you're amending something. And in a similar vein, you could take this point and you might be like, you know what, actually this station is down on Liberty Street and somehow someone put it here. And you could drag it and put it down where it belongs. In order to do that, like I just mentioned, you go to that layers little visualization portal under the layer section that we were just looking at. And I'll actually show you one more time, just in case you missed that a couple minutes back here. You would go here and open up subway stations, zoom in, see, okay, it's there, save, finish. And I actually have misspoke a little bit there. You would want to make first sure that the map is editable. So, edit. All right. Then you'd click View, and you'd hit these pencils. So when you hit that pencil, boom, I've gone to the individual layer like we were talking about, and I could then click it. I could drag. I'm not going to do that. But you see this Cortlandt Street, move it up here, change the info. That's actually a great one to click because it's actually a closed station right now, so I wouldn't get in trouble for moving it. But then you click Save, or you click Exit Editing, Save, etc., and you are good to go. So there you go. That's how easy it is to make these maps. It's really not as crazy as you'd think. It obviously gets more complicated when you are uploading and making the layer from scratch, but even that is not that hard, and we're going to have a ton more stuff that goes through that process. So for now, there's your New York map. Thanks.